حفظ القيادة السورية على أرواح مواطنينا وأمن بلدنا.
Assad does not have significant military capability.
إذا قتلونا مع اليابان نروح بيتنا.
Good afternoon. It is Thursday, the 19th of September. I'm Yumna Naufal, and these are today's headlines. Lebanese police examined a suspicious object found overnight near the apartment building of a Syrian man who was killed when a bomb exploded in Halat. U.S. Ambassador David Hale says he discussed with caretaker Social Affairs Minister Wael Abu Faour the impact of the flow of Syrian refugees to Lebanon and international efforts to help the country deal with the crisis. And the United Nations defends a report by UN chemical weapons experts that Russia has criticized as one-sided. Lebanese police are examining a suspicious object found overnight near the apartment building of a Syrian man who was killed when a bomb exploded in his home in Halat, north of Beirut. A security source revealed that a policeman from the Internal Security Forces Information Branch found what looked like an explosive in a lot 15 meters from the apartment of Musa Mustafa Brahim Al-Ali, who was killed by a bomb he may have been handling on Tuesday. Policemen took the suspicious object for examination, according to the source, who spoke on condition of anonymity. The investigation into the Halat explosion is still underway. U.S. Ambassador David Hale says he discussed with caretaker Social Affairs Minister Wael Abu Faour the impact of the flow of Syrian refugees to Lebanon and international efforts to help the country deal with the crisis. The diplomat says his discussions with Abu Faour focused on the efforts exerted by the U.S. and the international community to assist Lebanon in dealing with this humanitarian and economic crisis.
Lebanon, of the flow of refugees from Syria, and efforts by the United States and the international community to assist Lebanon and the Lebanese people in dealing with this humanitarian and economic crisis. The starting point for our discussion was yesterday's meeting, chaired by Prime Minister Mikati, to review the World Bank's assessment of the impact of this flow of refugees on Lebanon and on what is required in order to deal with it. The findings of the report underscore just how serious this challenge is and the importance of dealing with it not only for humanitarian reasons but for Lebanon's very stability. I've lived in Lebanon long enough to understand the impact refugees can have on the fragile fabric of this country and of the responsibilities placed on the international community to help deal with a situation which we all know is well beyond Lebanon's capacity to deal with alone. Lebanese communities, often already disadvantaged themselves, are providing water, sanitation, electricity, health care, and shelter to those fleeing violence and persecution next door. We are helping these communities and will continue to do so. The United States has already provided over $180 million to help both the refugees in Lebanon and the Lebanese communities that are hosting them. And overall, we've provided over $1 billion in humanitarian assistance for the Syrian crisis.
A meeting will be held on the sidelines of next week's UN General Assembly to discuss ways of helping Lebanon cope with the Syrian refugee influx. The Lebanese official says there will be a meeting in New York on September 25th of the international group to support Lebanon at France's initiative. The UN Refugee Agency, UNHCR, has registered more than 746,000 Syrians in Lebanon, though many others remain unregistered. Linda Tamim reports.
Thousands of Syrians are fleeing from their country every day to escape from the conflicts between government forces and the Islamist rebels, and now potential airstrikes from the United States. The UN says more than 2 million people have fled war in Syria, and nearly half of them are seeking refuge in Lebanon. As the country has yet to establish refugee camps for Syrians, many of the newly arrived are pouring into Palestinian refugee camps. Shatila, a camp in southern Beirut, has received more than 2,000 Syrians since last year.
Some who came here have families who live here. Others are renting places, so you have several families living in one house, and even several families living in one room. This adds to our poverty and misery. Tens of families could get kicked out because they can't pay rents anymore.
Some Syrians say their families sleep on the floor, that they need milk and diapers for their babies. They say they feel like beggars paying a heavy price for a war they never asked.
We were living in Idlib and we moved to Yarmouk camp and then to other villages in Damascus, and then my son was killed and our house was destroyed. We suffer from very difficult situations. There's no water, no electricity here, and there we had the bombardment. I wish I could go back to Syria. I'm not adapting here. I don't like it. Everything is humiliating and insulting.
Town after town in the Bekaa Valley quickly was filled up with makeshift tent cities. Dozens of Syrians, old and young, are living under one roof, anywhere where they can find shelters, like this town of Barliez. But the municipality is struggling to cope, and Lebanese residents are growing increasingly impatient with the chaos.
Today the refugee is like a citizen. He has the same expenses. He's using electricity, water and the infrastructure. So our expenses are getting higher. So there will be a time when we will just give up, that we can't continue anymore and see who we can support. And those that we can't will just have to apologize to them.
The World Bank says the war in Syria and the influx of nearly 1 million refugees have cost Lebanon billions of dollars. Yesterday, President Michel Sleiman chaired 2 meetings in Babda to discuss the preparations for the September 25th conference in New York, which will tackle ways of helping the country cope with huge numbers of Syrian refugees. Government officials say Lebanon needs hundreds of millions of dollars to adapt its infrastructure, overwhelmed by the refugee influx, and to provide for new arrivals.
The world's chemical weapons watchdog says it will meet on Friday to discuss a Russian-U.S. plan for the destruction of Syria's chemical arsenal. The Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons 41-member Executive Council will discuss the Russian-U.S. plan agreed at the weekend in Geneva in a bid to avert U.S.-led military strikes on Syria, blamed by the West for a chemical weapons attack in August. The plan says that President Bashar al-Assad's regime will hand over a list of its chemical weapons and facilities by Saturday, and that all will be destroyed by mid-2014. However, Assad said in an interview on Wednesday that the task will take at least a year and cost $1 billion. This comes as the UN defended a report by UN chemical weapons expert that Russia has criticized as one-sided, saying its conclusion that rockets loaded with sarin gas were used in an August 21st attack should not be questioned.
The Russian permanent mission to find out precisely what Deputy Foreign Minister Ryabkov said in Damascus. On the face of it, these reported remarks are an attempt to call into question the Secretary-General's investigation team led by Professor Selstrom and the credibility of its thoroughly objective report. We can only stress that the Secretary-General has said repeatedly, including just yesterday, to all 193 member states in the General Assembly, that the investigators are going to return to Syria as soon as practical to complete their work on Khan al-Assad and all other pending credible allegations before completing the team's report. The Secretary-General has the fullest confidence in the professionalism of his team and their work and findings. They worked impartially and to the highest scientific standards despite the exceptionally difficult conditions of the
Russia's Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov said initial UN Security Council resolution supporting a deal for Syria to scrap its chemical arms should be limited to that purpose, suggesting Moscow would oppose any threat of force. Speaking in Damascus, Sergei Ryabkov said the resolution should support an expected decision by the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons backing the U.S.-Russian deal, and nothing more than that. Russia says it suspects rebels staged the attack to provoke military intervention, and Ryabkov accused the investigators of all but ignoring evidence presented by the Syrian government that he said supported rebel culpability. 2 former U.S. defense secretaries who served under President Obama are criticizing his administration's strategy on the Syrian crisis at a forum in Dallas, Texas. Former Secretary of Defense Leon Panetta said once Obama decided on a military strike on Syria to punish the Assad regime's use of chemical weapons, he should have followed through. On the other hand, former Pentagon Chief Robert Gates said the Obama administration should increase its covert assistance to the Syrian opposition.
Once he makes that determination, it is the responsibility and the authority goes with it in Commander-in-Chief to take action. So my view would have been that once the President came to that conclusion, that he should have directed limited action going after Assad to make very clear to the world that when we draw a line and we give our word, damn it, we back it up.
Coming up next, Taiwan's EVA Airways flies its Hello Kitty themed airplane into Los Angeles. Stay with us. Welcome back. Egyptian troops and police stormed the Qadessa district in the outskirts of Cairo to clear it of terrorist elements, according to security officials who say triggering clashes with armed groups based in the area. The clashes have so far left 1 policeman dead and at least 28 people were arrested, according to the Interior Ministry, that added that another 135 people were wanted for arrest. It said police forces took control of the area and imposed a curfew. Security troops launched an operation in the area to arrest people accused of torching police stations and killing about 11 security officers in clashes that erupted following the army's ouster of President Mohamed Morsi last July. Qadessa, known for producing and selling fancy fabrics, is 14 kilometers from the Egyptian capital and known to be an Islamist stronghold. Iran's new president, Hassan Rouhani, has praised Barack Obama following an exchange of letters with the U.S. president, adding that his government would never develop nuclear weapons. Rouhani said Obama had recently written to him to congratulate him on his election victory, and some issues of his interest were raised. I responded to that letter. I thanked him and expressed Iran's viewpoint on the issues raised in his letter and some other issues, Rouhani told NBC News in advance of a visit to the UN General Assembly in New York next week. Earlier, White House spokesman Jay Carney said that in his letter, the president indicated that the U.S. is ready to resolve the nuclear issue in a way that allows Iran to demonstrate that its nuclear program is for exclusively peaceful purposes. NBC separately quoted Rouhani as saying his administration will never develop nuclear weapons and that he has full authority to make a deal with the West on the disputed nuclear program. The son of Libya's former ruler Muammar Gaddafi, Saif al-Islam, is to stand trial alongside former intelligence chief Abdullah Senussi. Saif al-Islam Gaddafi has been charged with murder in relation to Libya's 2011 civil war, and he, along with Senussi, both face possible death sentences. Both face charges over alleged crimes committed during Gaddafi's 42-year rule and during the 8-month civil war in which he was killed. Last February, the International Criminal Court had ruled Libya cannot give Gaddafi's son a fair trial and asked authorities to hand him over to the Hague-based court. However, Libya is keen to show the world that it can conduct the trial in a just manner. Libya wants to prosecute the pair at home, where they might face the death penalty, rather than hand them to the ICC, where they could only receive a jail sentence. Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg says revelations about U.S. government surveillance hurt users' trust in internet companies, and that knowing more about the programs would help relieve some of the public concerns. In a rare appearance in Washington, the 29-year-old social media billionaire urged the federal government to tell the general public more about the requests for data it makes to internet companies. Zuckerberg also expressed concerns that the outcry about vast secret spy programs run by the National Security Agency could alienate other countries and hurt innovation globally. When asked whether Facebook will, like MySpace, lose its cool factor, Zuckerberg laughed. He said, "People assume that we are trying to be cool, but that has never been my goal. I'm like the least cool person there is. I want to produce something that is a really fundamental service for the world." Taiwan's EVA Airways flies its Hello Kitty themed airplane into Los Angeles. The aircraft, painted with Hello Kitty characters on its exterior, also comes with Hello Kitty boarding passes and rows of seats adorned with the cat character. Even the food matches the feline theme. A powerhouse brand, Hello Kitty is part of a multi-billion-dollar franchise of Japan's Sanrio company. Right now, the airline will sport the Hello Kitty theme on 3 of its flights between LA and Taipei, Taiwan, and already has 5 Hello Kitty jets in service flying between Asian countries. It seems that for this one cat, the sky is not the limit. Now let's remind you of our headlines. Lebanese police examined a suspicious object found overnight near the apartment building of a Syrian man who was killed when a bomb exploded in his home in Halat. U.S. Ambassador David Hill says he discussed with Social Affairs Minister Wael Abu Faoud the impact of the flow of Syrian refugees into the country and international efforts to help the country deal with the crisis. And the UN defends the report by UN chemical weapons experts that Russia has criticized as one-sided. Those are your Thursday headlines live on Future Television in Beirut. I'm Yumna Naufal, wishing you a good night.
من حفز القيادة السورية على أرواح مواطنينا وأمن بلدنا.
Assad does not have significant military capability.
إذا قتلونا مع اللبنان